Taiwan's still a point of tension as the leaders of the US and China meet in California. A united opposition forces Taiwan's ruling party to rethink its election bid. It could soon be easier to secure an organ transplant as the government considers loosening donor requirements. Plus, traditional Chinese opera is given a modern spin in a new play by Taiwanese performers. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan remains a critical flashpoint between China and the US. It was one of the main things discussed by the two countries' leaders in a rare in-person meeting on the sidelines of the APEC summit in California. Joyce Zhang reports.
The weight of the world's superpowers in these two hands. On the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders Summit, the highly anticipated in-person meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping ended after about 4 hours, with two major outcomes: to cooperate on anti-drug policies and resume critical military-to-military communications.
We're reassuming military-to-military contacts, direct contacts. As a lot of you press know who follow this, that's been cut off, and it's been very worrisome. That's how accidents happen.
Beijing had cut off this line of contact after then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan last summer, flaring up a major flashpoint for the U.S. and China. But speaking to American businessmen after his meeting with Biden, Xi emphasized the importance of a good relationship with the U.S.
中国愿意同美国做伙伴。做朋友，我们处理中美关系的根本遵循，就是相互尊重、和平共处、合作共赢。
According to a senior U.S. official, however, Xi told Biden that Taiwan, the self-ruled nation which Beijing claims as its own, is the biggest and most dangerous issue in their relationship. But Biden has reiterated that he officially recognizes Beijing's government over Taipei's.
We maintain an agreement that there is a one China policy.
But Washington also keeps unofficial ties with democratic Taipei and sells weapons to the island nation, a situation that's long been the status quo.
It has always been U.S. policy to continue arms sales, and Beijing has allowed it for decades. I don't necessarily see the arming of Taiwan as necessarily supporting Taiwanese independence, which Beijing, I think, again, might confuse. But that's really their problem.
After Xi and Biden's meeting, Taiwan reiterated its right to defend itself and seek international support.
我想地球上其实也不止中国跟美国，我想这些国家、这些人，不管国家大小，那不管他是在身处哪个位置，其实每个人都应该有同样的这些自由、平等跟享有和平跟繁荣这样的权利。
Part of Taiwan's effort to win international support is strengthening its trade links with others in the region. Here at the APEC Leaders Summit in San Francisco, Taiwan's lead envoy, TSMC founder Morris Chang, has his work cut out for him. He'll be meeting with Biden and Xi and the other 18 member economies with the purpose of finding ways to work together towards the economic prosperity and security of the Asia-Pacific region. Justin Wu and Joyce Sun in San Francisco for TaiwanPlus.
DPP presidential candidate Chinga has criticized plans by the opposition to field a joint ticket against him. Lai says the Kuomintang and TPP's decision to team up to win January's vote is undemocratic.
我要特别强调，不管蓝或白，都不是台湾的民意主流。所推出来的候选人，不但不能够守护国家的安全，也没有办法提出完整的国政蓝图。
Lai said neither the KMT's Hou You-yi nor the TPP's Ko Wen-je has what it takes to lead the country, and he is confident in winning the election. Lai also responded to China's remarks about him possibly choosing Taiwan's representative to the US, Xiaobi Kim, as his running mate. Beijing called Lai and Xiao a pair of separatists. Lai says this shows he and his team are the only ones capable of safeguarding Taiwan. The KMT and Taiwan People's Party's decision to jointly run for the presidency may be a cause for concern for the DPP's Lai. Stash Butler spoke to Lev Nackman from National Chinga University about how Lai's campaign may need to adapt.
Taiwan's two biggest opposition parties have agreed to field one candidate in the presidential race. How worried will this pan-blue or white and blue coalition make the ruling party and their candidate Lai Ching-te, William Lai, about their chances of holding on to power?
This certainly is going to be a big shock to the DPP's presidential election team. The strategy the DPP has taken for the last few months has been one of relatively pragmatic calm. According to the polls, William Lai was going to win any four-way race. So from William Lai's perspective, it was kind of in his interest to sort of take a step back and just sort of coast to victory. Now William Lai needs to get much more aggressive in his campaigning. Ko Wen-je has absolutely stolen the media spotlight this election cycle. He's stolen it from William Lai, and he's stolen it from Hou You-yi, which is why now the KMT needs to work with Ko Wen-je. But if William Lai wants to really become relevant in the media again, he's really got to start thinking of a more aggressive campaign strategy.
How do they get creative and how do they get more aggressive in their campaigning and, head off the risk that they might lose this campaign?
Yeah, I think they really need to look back 4 years ago and look at what Tsai Ing-wen and her presidential campaign team did during the 2020 election. I mean, if you compare the Tsai campaign from 4 years ago to the Lai campaign of today, it's really two radically different campaigns. The Tsai campaign was fun, for lack of a better word, where there was so much effort made into making Tsai relatable as a strong but pragmatic leader who could be soft-spoken but still be a very popular person. Like, everyone wanted to be Tsai Ing-wen's friend in 2020. William Lai hasn't really used a lot of the same tactics in terms of his appeals that Tsai did 4 years ago. And I think it's something that the DPP should really look back on and say, what worked 4 years ago and how can we use that today?
You're a political scientist. What are you going to be looking out for between now and election day that's going to have, the biggest impact on the outcome of this race?
So I really think we need to pay attention to how the vice presidential rollout from the DPP affects their popularity. And we need to see how the eventual announcements of the district candidates are going to play a big role as well. Because now that we know that the KMT and the TPP are working together, that means that the odds of the DPP's ability to hold on to the legislative UN have drastically diminished. And this is going to play a role into the presidential campaigning as well. If the KMT and TPP deal truly does go through, that means that the DPP is going to be essentially getting ganged up on every district race around Taiwan, which is going to really affect support both for the party, for their candidates, and of course for the presidential candidates as well.
That was our reporter Stash Butler speaking with Lev Nackman from National Chinga University. Taiwan police have made the biggest amphetamine bust in the country's history. The drugs were seized while being transported by truck from the port city of Kaohsiung.
以补给的名义，将4个大的太空包夹下货轮。那里面呢，外观则以垃圾当作菜底来进行掩护，实则上里面是大量的毒品，史上最大的一个安非他命走私的毒品案件。
Police say they seized over a ton of amphetamines and over 100 kilograms of ketamine, with a combined street value of over $75 million. They believe the drugs were brought into the country from Vietnam. 4 suspects were arrested in this case. The alleged mastermind behind this smuggling ring and 7 accomplices had already been arrested in August. Taiwan's only remaining troupe performing a traditional type of Chinese opera has announced its new play for next year, aiming to make the art form more relatable to modern audiences. Yu Jing Huang reports on efforts to keep Yu opera alive.
A classic romantic story passed down for more than 1,000 years. The tale of Li Wa depicts a courtesan's love with a wealthy young man. The original plot goes like this. The pair meet, fall in love, conquer difficulties, and live happily ever after. But Taiwanese playwright Liu Huifen thought this simple story wouldn't speak to modern audiences. She spent 3 years writing a new adaptation for the Taiwan Bounce Opera Company, Taiwan's only group performing Yu opera, which hails from China's Henan province. This new version will be presented to audiences next year, in time for the troupe's 70th anniversary.
我是一个现代人，我看那个传统的本子，我基本上就会有这些疑问问号。那我把这些问号呢，用我现在的新的诠释方法，那我觉得观众应该可以了解这个我新的一种观念跟手法。那特别是在价值观。
After the Chinese Civil War, and later moved to Taiwan to give mainlander refugees from Henan a sense of home. That's after Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government brought over 600,000 soldiers to Taiwan, paving the way for many Chinese arts groups to establish themselves here. But as later generations have steadily lost their Chinese identity, Yu opera has struggled to find a new audience.
人家怎么去认同你这一个豫剧是里面是台湾土生土长的，还是移植过来了？因为那个历史背景大概已经不见了。
But enthusiasts hope that Taiwanese audiences can now see this traditional performing art as part of the country's own culture and help preserve it.
好的戏没有观众来看的话，只能摆在博物馆里头了。所以希望，尤其是年轻的观众朋友们，不要放弃我们台湾自己的东西。
Just like the tale of Li Wa, there were many twists and turns in the 70 years of Yu opera's development in Taiwan. And for those who dedicated their lives to this art, they hope the future holds brighter days ahead. Klein Wang and Yujin Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, AI is now a commonly used digital tool, but how can it help teach children math? We find out after the break.
Captivating vocals, powerful orchestration. Relive the iconic movie scenes with live musical accompaniment. Impact Taiwan, the 60th Golden Horse Awards movie concert. Coming Saturday, November 18th, 8 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
We bring you stories from Taiwan.
Every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's up, Taiwan? On TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan's government wants to make it easier for people needing organ transplants to find a donor. Right now, the law says people can only receive organs from relatives or, in some cases, spouses. But as John Van Trieste reports, this might be about to change.
Thousands of people in Taiwan need organ transplants, but donors are relatively few. During the COVID-19 pandemic, people stayed away from hospitals, and donations slowed to a trickle of just a few hundred a year. The result is a big backlog. Kidneys are needed most, but people are waiting for a whole range of organs, from livers to hearts to intestines. Even when organs are available, getting one can be hard. Taiwan's laws only allow donations from blood relatives. Spouses can donate too, but under strict conditions. They must be married for 2 years or have a child. The reason for all this is a deep concern that people may pay for an organ, or that a black market for organ trafficking could grow. Donations by living, unrelated people are allowed in countries such as the US and UK, but some doctors in Taiwan say that even when a transplant looks to be above board, they can't help but be suspicious.
即便是透过了访谈，或是透过了精神评估、心理的评估，你都没有办法去避免掉任何的对价关系。
那可能 under table 在牌面下可能会有一些考量的，只要真的掉入说所谓的用买卖哈，我常常就想说，有钱人的朋友会比较多一点哈，在各个医院里面的伦理委员会一定要妥善的把关。
And that sense of a need for caution goes all the way to the top.
当然要非常小心，非常谨慎去做评估。那这个也需要透过修法。
But for the thousands still on the waiting list, how fast this deliberation goes may be a matter of life or death. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about organ donations in Taiwan, John Van Trieste spoke to Dr. Li Mingzhe, who we heard from in the last segment.
Over 10,000 people are waiting for organ transplants in Taiwan. Now, we know one obstacle is this rule that donors have to be blood relatives. But are there other hurdles?
在台湾或是说中国的教育文化当中，我们也很少有利他这样子的一个精神存在。然而，在国外的话，譬如说外国的训练以及外国的文化当中，他们对于利他精神的这样子的传播是从小就开始做的。那再加上说，我们在文化当中对于往生者，那我们表达的这样子的一个态度都是比较尊敬的，那比较不愿意去搬动他的身体。但是利他本身来讲，在台湾慢慢的我们也开始建立起这样子的一个文化的教育。
Some other countries already allow organ donations from non-blood relatives. Is there a reason this would run into problems in Taiwan?
我可以接受所谓的非血亲的器官捐赠，但是呢，这个必须要透过政府的机制来做一个无偿的一个利他精神的捐赠。坦白而言，我们没有办法去厘清或是去深入的了解这些人彼此之间所宣称的朋友关系到底是不是真的。所以我个人认为说，在伦理的议题上面，我们要让很多的事情能够成功，我们必须要架构在法律之上。也就是法律它会定出一个道德的最后的最低的一个底线的标准。
But in Taiwan, blood and bone marrow donors don't need to be related to the people who get the blood or marrow. What's different with organs?
骨髓因为捐赠之后它可以再生，它可以制造出来，那几乎生死以上也不会有任何比较严重的后遗症。但是做器官捐赠的话完全不一样，病人他会牺牲掉器官，身体里面本来有用的器官。那肝脏的话，虽然它会再生，但是它所谓的再生并不是长出一个完整的肝脏。
Once again, that was Dr. Li Mingzhe discussing Taiwan's rules on organ donation. The conflict in Myanmar between the junta and resistance forces shows few signs of letting up, with much of the country no longer under junta control. Tiffany Wong has this report.
An army outpost in Myanmar's western Sagaing region attacked. In this video, released by the National Unity Government, the country's administration in exile, made up of its ousted civilian leaders. Nearly 3 years after a junta forced out elected officials, armed opposition in the country is gaining the upper hand.
Junta has no control in most of the territory of the country, and it's not functioning as one. I think the estimations that we would make is they have less than 40% of the total territory of the country.
Ethnic armed groups on the country's fringes have been fighting for self-rule since Myanmar's independence from Britain 70 years ago. But now, civilians are forming themselves into so-called People's Defense Forces, fighting alongside ethnic armed groups to restore democracy.
This is unprecedented in many ways. Both for the success with which these military actions were carried out, but also unprecedented in terms of the unity and coordination that we're seeing between ethnic armed organizations and People's Defense Forces, which are militias and other armed groups throughout the country.
The generals label these resistance fighters as terrorists. They say it is their troops who are trying to bring stability and keep the country together. But human rights groups warn that backed into a corner, the junta could be more dangerous than ever. It's a force with a long history of alleged war crimes, like mass killings and rapes. And in recent months, they've increasingly been using indiscriminate airstrikes against civilians as they lose ground. For those opposing the military in Myanmar, peace and justice will only be possible once they have overthrown the regime.
It's inclusive federal democracy where everyone has equal right and justice being served that they deserve against their atrocities, including crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocidal attack to the Rohingya people. And ethnic people has the right to self-determinations. That's what that people of Burma are looking for collectively.
Violence in Myanmar has now left more than 4,000 dead, and 2 million people have fled their homes, many escaping across borders to neighboring countries. It's an ongoing humanitarian crisis often overlooked internationally. Recent victories by resistance fighters are bringing hope for a life beyond brutal military rule. And they know that their only chance at freedom is if they put up a united front. Patrick Chen, Rick Glowert, and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Defense ministers from ASEAN countries have issued a joint call for an end to violence in Gaza and Myanmar. The defense chiefs are holding their annual meeting in Jakarta. They met with US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Wednesday and will be joined by officials from several other countries like Japan, Russia and China on Thursday. ASEAN says with conflicts raging in several parts of the world, the group needs to help diffuse tensions, even outside the region.
I encourage peaceful resolutions to every dispute and seek cooperation rather than disobeying competition. I believe that power projection will benefit no one, and hence all parties must exercise self-restraint to prevent miscalculation and escalation.
Now, teachers and students in Taiwan are finding ways to check their math with artificial intelligence, but it doesn't always work. Irene Lin has more.
Solving math problems on demand. This may sound like a dream come true for students here in Taiwan, especially for those that have trouble with the subject. Now, teachers are trying to use AI to help students master math. Zhen Qingliang is a high school math teacher based in Taipei. He's taught people how to use AI before, but it's his first time using AI to teach math. He aims to help students solve math problems with generative AI like ChatGPT and Wolfram Alpha.
所以学生可以透过这些学习的逻辑啊、脉络啊，还是步骤方法，那他就可以学到解这个问题的可能是某一些技巧、技术或者是步骤。
To get the right answers to a math problem, students need to feed AI with the right prompts, which some students say is a struggle.
我每次问他就是类似像数学或是数理这些需要计算，就是我不知道为什么我每次问他很常都会就是会出错，就是或是他回答问题非常奇怪，就是或是答非所问这样。
Zhen says the tricky thing is that sometimes, even with the right prompts, AI make mistakes, especially with math. He says most chatbots were trained on text, not numbers, and any answers it gives will vary depending on how the question is presented. Zhen tells his students they need to learn how to solve problems themselves and not rely on AI-generated answers.
你自己还是要验算，还是要去验证说，那他刚跟你讲方法，那所以我这个答案这样是不是正确的
Zhen's class is part of a series of free online courses offered by the Taipei city government to promote its educational platform, KuCloud. That platform now has AI chatbots that generate tailored answers to students' questions. Computer and education expert Huang Guozhen says this is a shift away from the traditional digital learning system.
我们最早期的时候，最常用的就是把 AI 扮演一个老师的个人家教。这个 AI 系统它有办法去测试、评量，跟去诊断出学生有没有能力学现在要学的知识，问题点在哪里。
Taiwan's government and non-profit organizations have put a lot of effort into using generative AI for language education. but AI used for math has been overlooked.
就是他把它当成 Google 来查询，其实这是错的，这是错的，所以他们还是需要老师去教导。那我觉得可以开这样的课，至少让他们知道怎么样去运用 AI 在自己的生活或学习上，而不是滥用或者是误用。
For some students, learning how to use AI is not only a matter of accuracy, but accessibility.
毕竟升上高中之后，有一些问题其实问家长可能比较没有办法解答，所以这种时候用 AI 应该会是很方便的工具。
With these tools and knowledge of how to use them properly, STEM students are better equipped to work on interdisciplinary questions.
那像这种问题都是比较有高层次的批判或高层次的思考的问题，都会是比较好的问题。那学生在解决这个问题或做这个专题的过程中，他可以去请教 ChatGPT， 请他提供一些意见啊。
Educators like Zen believe AI has the potential to be a great study partner that makes math easier for students to understand. They hope by teaching students how to use AI properly, they will carry the skills to other parts of their lives and learn proactively and independently. Ethan Chen, PT Zhuang, and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, feast your eyes on the Christmas light show at London's Royal Botanical Gardens. I'm Yin Khvat. Take care and see you next time.